Spectres, welcome back to another week of the Mass Effect Lorecast, and this one is filled with some news. And joining me to dissect that news, should we say news loosely, is my co-host Genesis. Genesis, how's it going?
Things are going pretty dang good today. It's been a good day for me.
That's good. We took last week off because my son brought home something from daycare. I got sick, very sick, actually. I lost my voice like completely for a couple days. Took a while to get it back. And then the virus or whatever just started going around the house. As anyone with little kids is well aware, this was our first bout of that. So this was our first tango with the Petri dishes products. But anyway, now my son is sick. And so we had to delay recording this week. So if you're noticing this go up on Spotify a little bit later or Apple Podcasts, that might be why. But anyway, we've got some news, and I say that loosely because it is a leak that we should talk about. We were going to talk about Paul Grayson this week. However, now we get this bit of information about casting calls coming out from the Mass Effect TV show. Now, Genesis, you brought this to my attention, and then I did a little bit more digging myself. And apparently this is originating from an independent blogger and show business insider named Daniel Richtman. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And apparently several casting calls for that Mass Effect TV show on Amazon have leaked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I don't know exactly how definitive this is or if this is real or if this is just all speculation, but I thought that it would be a good chance for us to at least talk about what is being leaked and what this could mean for the show.
Right. So here is what Mr. Richtman is reporting, that the first casting call going out to try and put someone in the role is male, 30 to 39 years old, described as a young Colin Farrell type with open ethnicity. I'm not sure. I think a lot of people are going to see that. Okay, male, 30 to 39 years old, young Colin Farrell, Shepard. That's going to be their first thought, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what I heard too, because even thinking about it, like standard Sheplu looks a little Colin Farrell-y. I mean, especially you're talking young Colin Farrell, because now if the people who don't recognize the name right off the gate, he is a very handsome Irish actor. My opinion, I'm aware. But he can range from like the determined detective Danny Whitwer in Minority Report, a great Tom Cruise movie, which is something I don't say very often, to the action villain of Bullseye in the Ben Affleck Daredevil movie, to leading rom-com guy in Winter's Tale. So he has this huge range, and if they're looking for somebody with that style.
Yeah, I feel like Colin Farrell probably gets dunked on a lot, but I don't... Okay, so you brought up Bullseye in Daredevil, and I do have to be like the thorn in your side there, because what the hell was that? I love that movie, and more importantly, I love the soundtrack on that movie. That soundtrack is amazing. Bleed for Me by Saliva, great song. But I don't think that this necessarily means Shepard, right? Besides, if you're talking about Shepard and this is Shepard, then all of a sudden you're like preemptively declaring that there will be no FemShep. Like, FemShep is not the lead, is what you're saying. And I don't know if they want to go that route.
Okay, so it's very much a possibility on that. I think that this other female lead that we have coming up is a possibility, because I've been thinking about this one like pretty much all day, and I wouldn't mind it being a Shepard story If the female lead that is okay, so another one is the female from 30 to 49, human providing a parallel narrative from Earth. A parallel narrative. Okay, so what if that's a femshep character? I don't know. Having them both.
I don't know about that. Well, between the ages of 30 and 49, femshep would definitely not be on Earth. So, unless it's like in that very short time frame that Shep is incarcerated.
Yeah, but that's the actor's age. That's not the age of the character. That's the age of the actor that they're looking for. And we've got 30-year-olds playing high school students and then 19-year-olds who can read like they're 40 on camera. So there's an age range there.
But I also find this interesting because unless they're taking huge artistic liberty, like let's just for a second assume, okay, they're doing the TV show based off of the original trilogy. I think this stands at odds with that because if you have a female whose age is 30 to 49, roughly appearing human and providing a parallel narrative from Earth, who do we have in the original trilogy that fits that mold? Really not any of the major characters, and certainly not Ashley. I can't think of anybody actually who fits that mold. And so I feel like this casting call, if it's to be believed, kind of stands at odds that this would be a direct parallel of any story from the original trilogy.
Unless it's Miranda. Miranda is Earthborn, grew up on Earth, and didn't join Cerberus until later.
That would be interesting. Now, we also have this, I find it interesting, open ethnicity for the lead. Meaning that they are either creating a completely new character where it doesn't have to mimic anyone, or it's Shepard, who can be anyone.
Exactly.
But you would think that if it were Shepard, that they would say male or female, that it would be a casting call that they'd be open to whoever could play the role, right?
True. I guess, yeah. Unless it's a gender bent Colin Farrell, Colina.
Batarian Buttshot in chat says, I'm guessing the female 30 to 49 might be Ambassador Goyle. That's a great reference, particularly if they are providing a human Earth perspective. So Ambassador Goyle was the human ambassador during the trilogy of novels. I should say the first novel from Drew Karpyshyn, Mass Effect Revelations, and Ambassador before that. So this was while David Anderson was being evaluated to become a Spectre. And so Ambassador Goyle was the human ambassador then. So depending on setting, maybe that would line up. However, I believe that Anderson would be a little bit younger than 30 to 39.
Oh, yeah. Do we get a definitive age on Anderson? I'm not quite sure on that one. He does seem older.
I also think that it would be kind of a huge fuck up if Amazon was casting for a young Anderson role and they decided to cast a white guy.
Yeah. Yeah,
So open ethnicity, that's what I'm referencing there, the casting call saying open ethnicity.
Especially because like we have so many characters who have defined ethnicities, and in our minds, these characters look like these characters. Liara looks like Liara. Everybody looks like exactly like we can see them. And even the fact that we're going to have to adjust to, if these are the characters we love, they're not going to sound like them. And that's already going to be weird enough for me. Yeah.
Okay. So that being said, you brought up Liara a little bit earlier. There is a casting call for a female co-lead. This is interesting. Actress, ages 34 to 39. Alien character requiring prosthetics. Okay, a lot of people, like by and large, the vast majority of people speculating about this have concluded gotta be Liara. But what I challenge them to ask themselves, why? Why are you so certain that it is Liara?
Because she's been the co-lead in the original trilogy. It has been a story about Shepard and Liara trying to figure out everything.
But this doesn't have to be an OG trilogy mirror story, does it?
You're right. It could be any type of alien. It could be any species of alien as long as it's feminine-like. I mean, it could be a Solarian for all we know.
It could be the first female Volus that we ever get the chance to meet. Who knows? Female Volus co-lead. That would be bold. No, but alien character requiring prosthetics. I think that part is probably a really good indicator that it's an Asari, right? Because the what do they call? Not head tentacles, head flange, head.
It's their carapace. It's their
their head pieces. I can't remember the name. Anyway, yeah, I feel like that's probably an indicator that this is an Asari. Because if you were playing a Quarian, then you're just in a suit. You don't really require any prosthetics, maybe some weird legs, but that could be CGI. If you were a female Krogan, that would definitely be a lot of prosthetics.
That would be a heavy prosthesis, as well as a Turian. That would also be a lot of prosthesis.
Right. So, all right, let's go over to the next casting call, because I feel like that one is pretty open. We just know that there's going to be, according to this leak, a female co-lead in her mid to late 30s playing an alien that requires prosthetics. Keep that in mind. I don't think it's necessarily conclusive, but let's go to the next casting call. A male villain lead, 40 years old to 60 years old. This one just says Doug Jones type.
I like that. So Doug Jones is known for playing non-human characters. He was the blue brother Abe in Hellboy, and the amphibian man in The Shape of Water, aka Thane, and 60 episodes of Star Trek Discovery as Captain Saru, just to get the kind of feel that they're looking for on this one. The Shape of Water, that's just funny to me.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. So I, like probably a lot of other people, were like, who is Doug Jones? And then I Googled Doug Jones and I looked at his Wikipedia, and it said known for playing like monsters, aliens, non-human characters, right? And then I looked at the filmography, and it said Amphibian Man in Shape of Water. It also said that he got his start in the 80s playing Mac Tonight.
I don't know that one.
Okay, so Mac Tonight was a mascot for a McDonald's marketing campaign. And it was the guy with the crescent moon head. That was Mac Tonight. And I could not believe that Abe in Hellboy and the Amphibian Man in Shape of Water and Mac Tonight are all the same person. That like blew my mind.
And bringing up McDonald's again with the filet of fish finder. Let's go Google that one, guys.
Yeah. So I think that it doesn't say prosthesis required for this male villain lead, but I feel like if they're saying Doug Jones type, it's kind of like almost a dog whistle for like monster makeup.
Yes, very much so. But the fact that it's any alien type to me. It does read, the male villain lead. If we're thinking OG trilogy, especially if we're thinking ME1, it reads very Saren. But the fact that Doug Jones also played a character that looks exactly like Thane, it could be a Drell.
Ooh, that'd be cool. Male Drell villain lead. Middle-aged, by the way, 40 to 60 years old. A lot of people are also saying that sounds a lot like Saren.
Mm-hmm.
My thing is, if that's Saren, like, why? First of all, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Because we've already kind of like established that the male 30 to 39, possibly Shepard. I kind of doubt they go that route. But the female co-lead being an alien requiring prosthetics. And then who is this parallel narrative from Earth? Maybe this is the kind of curveball. Maybe they're trying to like throw in a little spicy new lore that never was in the games. I think that'd probably upset a lot of people. Actually, if they were going to like try and mirror the Shepard story, but then throw in some new lore as if it were there the whole time.
Yeah. Or it could be Emily Wong for all we know. She's reporting from Earth, not from the Citadel.
That'd be cool. That would mean that this was Mass Effect 3, though. I think. Well, I guess she could always go back and forth between Earth. But, yeah. I think, like, it doesn't say alien for male villain lead here for this casting call. But I feel like you can't say Doug Jones type and not evoke memories of the Fawn in Pan's Labyrinth. Right? Or the Pale Man.
Yeah. Yeah, no, Abe in Hellboy is exactly who I picture. You know, that's the one that sticks out for me, thinking exactly what this is. I do. It reads very Sarin, and that both makes me happy, but also worries me. And I don't know if I want this.
For those of you who haven't seen Doug Jones, he's very lanky. So that, I mean, you could put like a Turian suit on someone who's pretty lanky and it would work. Or like you said, a Drell, that would work. Krogan, I cannot see Doug Jones playing a Krogan. Doesn't mean he wouldn't, but you know, anyway, we have one more casting call that has been leaked. It's another man, ages 30 to 49, and it just says wrestler type soldier. Vega?
Yeah, you know, there's been a lot of different ones that I've seen people trying to guess on who this is. Some people were saying Garrus. I did see some Vega. For me, this reads kind of Caden.
You think Caden is kind of a wrestler? I guess it depends on, do you mean like actual wrestlers or do you mean WWE wrestlers? Because they have two very different body types.
Yes, they do, because it's like the WWE wrestlers. Well, no, hold on. I'm going to take that back because they're both body types in the WWE. You have Kane, Undertaker, Kurt Angle. Guys like that are the true stolid brick shape, and they are the wrestlers. And then you've got the guys like HBK, Triple H, that have more of the swimmers, athlete bodies, who are the triangle shape. Broad, wide shoulders, and then leading down to the narrow little waist. Now, if it's that style where it's got the wide chest and wide shoulders, but going down to the narrow waist shape, that's a triangle shape. That's a Garrus shape. And I will agree with on that one.
Yeah, that's a trash can shape. That's a Garrus shape.
Oh, trash cans don't have a curvaceous little... Have you seen how small that man's waist is? You could fit your hands around that in one go. It's
quite small. However, his little like neck thing looks like the opening to a trash can. All right, so we've got a wrestler type soldier. Again, could be Caden, I guess. It could be Garrus. You're saying you would think that they would also note prosthetics, like heavy prosthetics involved, though, if it were Garrus.
That's true. I believe that. And so that's why this leads more Caden to me, because he is also technically a soldier. Yes, he's a biotic soldier, but he's still a soldier.
To me, this reads a lot more like Vega, which would make me even more confused about what the hell the setting is for this TV show. Are they just skipping directly to Mass Effect 3? You know what I mean? Which they could be doing. Who knows? You know, maybe the Doug Jones type is kind of like a, I don't know, red herring because they're actually casting for the Elusive Man. I don't know. But I know that the wrestler type soldier, as soon as I see that, I think James Vega. But again, it could also be not related to the original trilogy whatsoever.
Right. We could be dealing with an entire new cast of characters who are just following along in the same timeline as Shepard. And so we'll hear about things that are happening, but it's not actually Shepard's story.
Here is a total curveball. what if this show takes place in Andromeda, except for that female 30 to 49 with the parallel narrative from Earth?
Oh.
So what if it's primarily taking place in the Andromeda galaxy? However, we have that tie to the Milky Way with her story coming from Earth.
Well, that would be interesting. I kind of like that, the way that they would tie all of it together. I just don't know if you can throw somebody into Andromeda and not try and explain all the lore. I feel like there'd be a massive lore dump if we're starting with Andromeda, or if you are starting with Vega right away, starting at Mass Effect 3 would be very difficult also. I feel like there's story beats that you have to hit. And if these were a bunch of other characters who are not related to the Normandy, but still play a prominent role, I guess it could be a Vega type, because we knew that Vega was still doing things alongside of what Shepard was doing, and those two stories interacted. But I think that you have to build the world before you can build the story when it comes to something like this.
Yes. And on that note, something just came to me, that the fact that they have a male, young Colin Farrell type, open ethnicity, says human male. Human male is going to be that lead. Female co-lead, so someone who is in a lot of scenes with the male lead, that this person is an alien, shows me that this story takes place sometime after the First Contact War, sometime after humanity has been integrated into the larger Milky Way political dynamic. Because otherwise you could not have a female alien co-lead.
Agreed. Yeah. Now we definitely have it's probably not going to be the First Contact War, and it's probably not going to be the Krogan rebellions, Yeah,
the presence of humans in this story has kind of solidified my opinion that it was not going to be the Krogan rebellions or the Rachni Wars or the Geth Morning War. So this kind of limits the scope in terms of the Mass Effect timeline when this series could take place. But again, all of this is kind of like hinging on whether or not this series of leaked casting calls is worth relying on. And that alone depends on the credibility of our source, which if you read anything about this online, you'll see it all comes back to a person named Daniel Richtman, like I mentioned at the beginning. Now, this was my first time hearing his name. I don't know about you, Genesis, but that might mean nothing for me, as I don't keep up really with Hollywood or industry news.
Yeah, no, I had not heard of this man before.
I guess there are a lot of people who keep up with the Marvel Cinematic Universe who know this guy's name because he's had some correct predictions in the past. But I wondered how does this guy even know, right? What kind of background does he have that would allow him access to details not publicly reported yet? Because it doesn't appear to me that he is an accredited industry reporter like, say, Jason Schreier. We often talk about him in terms of BioWare. And Schreier, of course, has Bloomberg backing his credibility, and a long list of bylines. So who then? And so I tried to find some kind of inkling of who Richtman might have worked for, and basically, like, what is Richtman's online presence like. And what I found was that he has accounts across social media, X, Patreon, under the name Daniel RPK. And he runs a YouTube account with about 11,000 subscribers named RPK News. And in all of that content, his bread and butter looks like it's inside scoops, rumors, leaks for movie and TV and film and comics. And it's very often originating from behind his paywall on Patreon. Now, his Patreon page says that his work is analyzing and talking about movies, TV, comics, and books, and providing some quote-unquote inside scoops. That's like the extent of the bio that we get. So when I saw that, I was a little bit like, I have even more questions now. You know what I mean?
Where are these scoops coming from? How are you getting in this information? Is it verifiable in any way, shape, or form? I don't know you, dude. If this comes out on Perez Hilton and Perez Hilton is saying, yeah, I got this information, then I would trust his leaks because he's a lot more established.
Right.
But this guy, I don't know.
Right. This is a little bit of like media literacy 101. And I hope that, you know, he or any of the people who look to him for like the gospel don't take this, you know, personally. It's just that we're approaching this with a little bit of skepticism. He is described in a lot of articles by like IGN and GameSpot as an influencer or writer who shares casting and production info. And in fact, I found this description interesting in the GameSpot article about what we've been talking about. GameSpot writer Lan Pitts says, insider Daniel Richtman via IGN, who has previously provided reliable casting details for projects like the Buffy the Vampire Slayer reboot. Mm-hmm. So there's some level of credibility, according to IGN, about a past, basically details that Richtman had leaked. Again, that leaves me with questions about, okay, so if he is credible and he has been right in the past, who is this and how is he? And maybe Daniel Richtman is a misnomer. Maybe that's not even his name. Maybe it's a pseudonym, right? Because if you're leaking this kind of stuff, you're probably not supposed to be leaking this kind of stuff.
Right? Leaks aren't supposed to happen unless they're intentional.
Right. So, a lot of what he has predicted in the past, not regarding this with Mass Effect, but a lot of what he's predicted in the past hasn't been fully verified. So I wanted to kind of put this disclaimer that I looked and I could not find any record of Richtman having formal credentials like being an employee of a studio, working inside a major production company, being an accredited journalist with major credentials, or really any web page of his own outside of Patreon, which again offered like sparse details about himself and his YouTube account. But that doesn't mean that he isn't. That doesn't mean that he isn't like in a position professionally where he would have access to these kinds of things. But I have found a couple of Reddit threads where people, like I said, keeping up with the MCU and leaks about the MCU, they put some faith in him, but they largely describe him as hit or miss. I guess a few years ago, people said his leaks of Marvel movie trailers and the dates, that was spot on, that he's a pretty good record with that. So apparently whoever's running this has some level of access, as they've been right about things in the past, but we don't really know what level of access, and it's not like they have a perfect batting average. So basically all of this is to say to everyone listening to take these Mass Effect TV show casting call things with a grain of salt. And the other thing is, even if he's absolutely right about all of these casting calls having been put out, that's not like definitive. Like the TV show writers and director could change their mind about how they want a character to be portrayed.
Right. We love this actress as our female co-lead, but we're just not finding the right guy to go along with her. The chemistry is just not working out right. Let's change our main male lead, and it could be somebody completely different.
Or there's always, contract negotiations fall through, that kind of thing. So, even if this Daniel Richtman is spot on with, the accuracy of the casting calls that he's put out, it doesn't necessarily mean that what we see in the final product will reflect that, which I guess is perfect cover.
Yeah.
That's kind of perfect cover if you're a leaker, isn't it? All right. Well, with that, let's get to the mid-break, and we've got some more to talk about with this Mass Effect TV show when we come back.
We have beef, we have bacon, we have beer. The foods of my people.
Young men have funny ideas of what Asari are like. I blame the extranet and computer games.
Rex?
Shepard.
Grunt?
Shepard.
Rex? Grunt?
All right, and here we are in the middle of the show where we read out your 5-star reviews. And we have a new one this week, Genesis, on Apple Podcasts from T.H. Sesford in Canada, who writes, "My favorite lorecast on the Citadel. Hey, Sam and Jen, I've listened to every episode, and I'm a huge fan. Thanks for kickstarting my love of the OT. I'm working through another playthrough on Insane. Vanguards for life. Hell yeah. I've also convinced my wife to start her first ever playthrough. You guys do an excellent job, and it's cool to hear all the lore I missed by not reading every codex entry I unlock as a completionist. Much love from Vancouver Island. Take care, Tommy C." Wow, Vancouver Island. It's like my neck of the woods. But thank you, Tommy C.
And thank you. We read your review out twice.
Oh, did we?
Liked it that much.
Wow, the review we loved so much we read twice. Okay, I didn't realize we already read that one. Chalk it up to some sleep deprivation on my part. Looks like we also have a couple of comments on our newest episode on Spotify. Now, I don't think we've read this one out from Varys Gakarian. That sounds like the name that Garrus would have with a mustache as a disguise.
His Luigi form?
Yes. So Varys Gaharian writes, "Just tripped across this podcast a few months ago while I was hospitalized and playing through Mass Effect 2 as I recovered. So it's pretty obvious to say that I owe you guys a lot. I wish Sam was my friend." I can be your friend, Varys, if you want. I can be your friend. But I don't think that you owe us anything. I'm just happy that you're here. I hope that you're recovering well from whatever it is that you were hospitalized with. Although Mass Effect 2 is not a terrible way to spend some time recovering.
That's how Bravada picked up the new Legendary Edition when she was recovering from surgery and played through it. She's like, all I can do is sit on my couch in recovery, so I might as well play Mass Effect.
Right on. And that's when I played Cyberpunk for the first time. I was recovering from getting all 4 wisdom teeth out. Ugh. Wouldn't recommend that. Getting all 4 out at the same time. That was rough. But hey, Cyberpunk on Percocet was fun. So we've got a new patron, Junior X13. Thank you. And we've got our tier 5 patrons. Butts, Unfortunate Benefactor, William, Superfly 440, Retrobot, Lieutenant Tocino, Kira C, and Ed Boy. Thank you all so much for supporting the show. And Genesis, I've got a sound clip here that you've given me, and it's time to test to see if I can place who said this in which game. All right, let's go ahead and play this one, shall we?
I'm pissed off. When I get pissed off, I shoot things. Find me more bugs.
Okay, that was definitely Mark Meir as Shepard. That sounds like a Mass Effect 1 line. It's really clean. Like, there's no background audio at all. I don't know how you got this that clean, but it sounds like it happened just based off of the background. It sounds like it happened on an Uncharted world. And it sounds like it may have taken place during that one mission where Shepard helps the Alliance Marines defend against the waves of Rachni.
100% spot on. Congratulations.
Wow! Nice! All right. I know my Mass Effect 1. I love that game. All right, thank you. Thank you. Were you surprised? Did you expect me to not get that one?
Well, because it's the Renegade option, so I was like, maybe he's never picked this one before, but wow.
I used my impressive powers of deduction to know that, okay, it's an Uncharted world, you're fighting bugs. Where are you fighting bugs? It's Shepard. It's got to be Mass Effect 1 because of how charmingly flat that was, like Day Zero in chat here just said. All right. So next week, I get to quiz you on a sound clip. So with that, let's get back to the rest of the show.
After time adrift among open stars, along tides of light and through shoals of dust, I will return to where I began.
Solarian reproduction different. Very little sex drive. if intended to try human, would try you.
Ow, my pancreas.
All right, here we are in the second half of the show. And, Genesis, I wanted to talk a little bit about what we do know so far on the Mass Effect TV show. Because there's a lot of speculation going around, and I want people to understand that even with the leaks we talked about in the first half, which might not be leaks at all, who knows, that there are some definitive publicly reported details that we do know. We can go through a little bit of these. Number one, we know that this series is officially in active development. Like that much has been confirmed. That is not hearsay. This Amazon TV series is in production. It is happening. Unforeseen circumstances notwithstanding.
Right. Who knows? Things could go wrong, but as of right now, it is in active development. This is known.
Right. This is the way. We also know that the writing for this was actually set to begin at the beginning of 2025. So by this point in September of 2025, there should be a decent amount of writing already done for the TV show.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that from some reporting from PC Gamer.
Which does kind of align with now that they've gotten through 8-9 months of writing, they are now starting to look at who would be casting for these roles. So the timeline on that leak does fit. Yeah. And we also know a little bit about the production team and who specifically is working on this. We know that Daniel Casey, whose name you might recognize from the Fast and the Furious series, is the writer and executive producer. Now, that one actually gave me a little bit of pause because Fast and the Furious, don't get me wrong, is a fun series, but it is not one that I would engage my mind like I engage my mind in Mass Effect. That is one where I imbibe and partake in certain substances because it is funny and a good way to tune out. It is more something I would expect from a Call of Duty adaptation than I would a Mass Effect one. I agree with you on that. It definitely gave me pause. But if I was like, if there's somebody who's going to do action combined with drama, well,
don't forget romance.
And romance, yes. It is going to be somebody who's done that previously. And the Fast and the Furious is action heavy. It is very drama heavy. It can get campy for sure. Fully aware of that. But so can Mass Effect.
Okay.
Don't kid yourself.
Fair. On that note, can we be lucky enough to get Michelle Rodriguez in the TV show?
Michelle Rodriguez is like my number one dream casting for Ashley Williams.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Anyway, I'm going to say, let's go to the next point before I say something that my wife wouldn't like me saying about Michelle Rodriguez. Doug Young, I think that's how you pronounce his last name, right? Jung, is the showrunner. And that's according to reporting from Games Radar, PC Gamer, a bunch of other places. I was actually unfamiliar with his name. Were you familiar with Doug Young?
I mean, they've been involved with like Star Trek Beyond, and that one I know about. And so the fact that this guy seems to be very space involved gives me a little bit better hope. So bringing Fast and Furious into space, I think that's how it's going to go. Wait,
didn't the last Fast and the Furious already bring Fast and the Furious to space? I didn't see it.
No, I haven't. I stopped after like 6. Okay.
Yeah, that's fair. So we also know that there's a few other people who are working on the series, including Michael Gamble, who is the executive. Oh, crap. Now I forget his exact title for the next Mass Effect. Basically, he's the head honcho for the next Mass Effect. So I always love to see it that they would include the game people in the production for the TV show. I think that's part of what made the Fallout TV show adaptation so successful, that they had clearly worked with Bethesda so closely.
Yes, and that right there, having Mike Gamble on, it brings a lot to it. There is a TV series that that I watched where it was a book adaptation, straight from novel to screen. And normally when they do that, it's like, oh, I'm going to buy the rights to your book and I'm going to write my own screenplay and I'm going to adapt it. But this one, they brought the writer, the author of the books, fully in, and she had to approve basically everything. So that way it didn't turn out something wild and crazy like the Twilight movies. Adapted from books. It did not go as well because a lot of things were changed. Okay. But I think in this case, having BioWare and EA producers included in bringing Mass Effect to the small screen is going to help a lot.
You said wild and crazy, and immediately I got this like mental image of Shepard and Garrus just like going to town and having their boys' day out and being two wild and crazy guys, which is an old reference. and if you get that reference, it might be time to get your colon checked.
I would love that so much, though. I would love to see just like a day in the life slice of Bro Shep and Garrus just being dudes. Like, give me that and I'll be happy.
That would be cool. Okay, so we also know that they're already, speaking of writing, we're talking about how they must be some level of advanced into the writing, given that the casting call is apparently going out. There's a pilot script, and there's already an outline for the series in place. That's promising to me. That was reported by PC Gamer, as well as a publication named Tweaktown, the dubious credibility of somewhere named Tweaktown I'm not too familiar with. But there is apparently an ample amount of writing that has already been done about this series before the production takes place. That's promising to me, because the last thing you want with any kind of media, fiction or nonfiction, is the writers scrambling to finish it while the plane is already in the air.
Right. And so the fact that at least the outline is in place and now they just are filling in the details and seeing how things are going. And I like the fact that it is still a little bit loose, because like what I was talking about earlier with the casting, maybe you can feel that other characters are going to be interacting more because of their on-screen chemistry and building up storylines that you didn't necessarily think were going to take a lead role. I've seen that happen in True Blood, watching that book series to TV series adaptation. The fans fell in love with a character who was supposed to die off at the end of season 1, but the fans loved them so much, they made it so that they didn't die and continued his character on.
Power to the people. And by the way, that's why we can even romance Tally and Garrus. Mm-hmm. That's why, right there. All right, so I mentioned Fallout, the Fallout TV series. Of course, I mentioned it because it's another Amazon product, but I also found out that the production team is leveraging Amazon, their teams that worked with the Fallout adaptation. So some of the same people that worked on adapting Fallout from video game to Amazon TV series are going to be working on this project as well. That's very promising to me, because you saw the Fallout TV series, did you? I loved it.
Oh, I absolutely loved it. I thought it was a great way to introduce the Fallout series, because it felt very Fallout. It held true to the universe and the world that was already built, but it wasn't them trying to follow the story of the Wanderer, I think it's called in Fallout 4. It wasn't trying to, the Survivor, that's what it was.
The Wanderer is a great song, though.
They weren't trying to follow the storyline that we have all built on our own. They're rather just placing another character in that same world, which is what we hope is happening here for Mass Effect. They're not trying to
Yes.
follow Shepard's story.
At least, yeah, I kind of hope that as well. Now, what's in store for the production in the future? It looks like there are some plans that filming will start toward the end of 2026. I don't know how promising that is, but I'm just going off of posts that IGN has put up. That it's the end of next year is when filming would start. So we may not get this series for a while.
Yeah. And I'm kind of okay with that. Because if they've taken, 9 months to a year to write a script that they feel is really going to work out, and then the casting and picking the correct people who are going to fill the roles as they see it, and then set building and world building and CGI creations, makeup artists, and building all the prostheses that are going to be required for this show. Because us in the fandom are going to nitpick. If they give us what Krogans look like in the comic books, we are going to riot, okay? I know us. This is us. This is the internet. We will be very offended if they do that. I would also love to know if we have a timeline of how long it took to do the Fallout show, because we know how successful that was and how true to lore that was. How long did it take them to do that? And I feel like that could be a similar timeline that we could see for Mass Effect. Because if it took them 3 years to do, then give Mass Effect the equal amount of time to make it as good as that.
The other thing is that I'm pretty sure I remember learning this about TV show production, that filming is one of the last stages.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that they're starting filming in late 2026, it doesn't mean that we're not going to get the show until 2028 or 2029. We could very well get the show in 2027. However, there's a decent amount of editing that needs to be done after filming, right? So I looked this up. Filming for the first season of the Fallout TV show began July 5th, 2022. So it came out, what? Was that early this year or last year?
Fallout, I believe, was last year.
Okay. So the Fallout TV series, it premiered on April 10th, 2024. That's when it was a little under 2 years from the start of filming to the premiere. So we could be looking at a 2028 release, but as Yukon Cornelius here in chat notes, that they also had the writer's strike that may have delayed production. So that's a good point. Who knows what the Mass Effect TV series production will look like? They all come with their own unique problems and challenges and hurdles. But I'm thinking in terms of when we're expecting the next Mass Effect game to be released. This could very well come out as somewhat of a companion to the next game, the same way that the comics and the novels came out as companions to the games which immediately followed their release.
I think that this would be a great release to happen, within a 6-month period of the next game.
Exactly. And we know that BioWare is a huge fan of doing that. With the Drew Karpyshyn novels coming out before Mass Effect 1, right before Mass Effect 1, right before Mass Effect 2, right before Mass Effect 3, in between, Mass Effect 2 and 3, a bunch of the comics coming out, and then with Andromeda, the trilogy of novels that came out for that one. So we know that BioWare likes partnering with other people to produce more world building, more lore stuff for partner kind of media to come out right before games release. All right, we have a little bit of time here at the end. I wanted to jump to just a couple of details about what we don't know or is still uncertain. So number one, obviously no official premiere date yet for the Mass Effect TV show. We also don't know what the setting is going to be. We just don't know. So that means we don't know if it's going to be Shepard or an entirely original story.
I'm going to assume the setting is going to be outer space.
Yeah.
I think I can confirm that one.
I think you're right. I think you're right about that one. It's going to be extraterrestrial, intergalactic. No, not intergalactic. Maybe intragalactic.
Intra.
Yeah. And we also know that while we have had these supposed leaks for the casting calls, nothing about that has been officially confirmed. So before you go online and start sending mean things to people, just keep in mind that you might be wrong. Anyway, Genesis, what do you want to see from the TV series when it comes out? Now, I know we talked a little bit about this with our patrons, but like, you know, you want it to be an original story. Who would be your lead characters if we're talking about people who have already been established?
Ooh, if we have to pick somebody who's already been established, I actually would kind of prefer it to be somebody that we don't know, following somebody else's story that is concurrent with Shepard's story. So that way we hear little bits and pieces. We hear our own elevator conversations about what Shepard is out there doing, but it's just some other person's story that's going on along the same time. Because I don't know if there's anybody really in the games right now that's not related to the Normandy that I feel is a compelling enough character to want to follow them around for however long this series is going to be.
That is fair. I would probably agree with you that I want someone new. Like, I just want something new to dive into. That way we don't get the constant comparisons to someone in the lore, you know, that we already have. Well, you know, they would never have said this, or they would never have done that. I don't know why I sound like RFK Jr. They would never have said that. Now make sure you drink your raw milk.
Agreed.
What about a conflict? What kind of conflict do you think would be good to study in the next Mass Effect series?
To study in the next Mass Effect series or in this TV series? Sorry.
Right. Right. Yes, this TV series.
Okay. So I think that it could still be somebody who's trying to help Shepard. Maybe there's another team out there. Maybe it's a Cerberus team trying to do research on the Reaper invasion that's coming, especially if we're setting this in Mass Effect 1, Mass Effect 2 times. You know, maybe it is Cerberus. Maybe it is somebody that is also trying to find the same information that Shepard's looking for, but just not on the Normandy, not in that setting, not on the ship, but somebody who's going towards the same information, and obviously not getting there before Shepard, not getting their story heard, because the council's not going to listen to some rando, you know, but we'll still be able to get the lore of Mass Effect and learning other things, new things, and still trying to figure out the information.
So that sounds to me a lot like Paragon Lost, which was the anime movie about James Vega. And I actually, you know, I guess this was a hot take because a lot of people don't like that anime movie, but I loved it. And I thought that it was a great addition to kind of fill in the gaps of the lore from the games about like it was so good that I had wished that it was just kind of part of what we had learned about James in Mass Effect 3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, something along those lines where we get additional supplemental lore that obviously isn't lore breaking, but something to give us even more in-depth and to make the games feel more immersive because we find out this other information.
Yeah. How long do you think this series should be? Do you think it should be like a limited time miniseries or like a season after season kind of deal?
I really think that that's going to be more about what story this is. if it is just a little side mission and it's just these little characters who are having a insulated storyline, then that's great for a miniseries. If they are going the Shepard route and going through the events of the Mass Effect games, we need it to be a lot longer. We need it to be a longer standing series, because trying to get all the information and therefore the weight of that information, the emotional impact that we feel from making these decisions, you can't have that unless you're given the time to build that.
I agree. I think the really critical factor here is going to be what the subject matter is, right? If it's an original story, I would prefer that it's a limited time miniseries. Because then they have a clear exit strategy and it doesn't become this long drawn out thing where like no one knows how to end it. You know what I mean? Which happens so often with different fiction. Anyway, I would love it if it was like an 8 to 10 episode miniseries about an established period of time that we may have heard even just from like an elevator news story in Mass Effect 1 or 2. And I would love it if it was just like a mini series that had very specific focus, didn't have like a huge big bad like the Reapers, right? But just had a very limited, narrow focus on that so that they could develop those characters very well in that. Like almost like a Star Wars Rogue One, but turned into a series.
Yeah. Ooh, I like that a lot. Because, with Rogue One, we knew what the final outcome was going to be, but it was really more about the journey on how they got there and everything that was going on around that and building up new characters. I like that. And then who knows? Maybe these characters can play into the next game.
That would be cool. That would be really cool indeed, especially because there were companion shows like that for Dragon Age, right? Was it Dragon Age or Baldur's Gate? That kind of profiled the different main characters of that one.
Well, Dragon Age did it. They had an anime that came out, but none of those characters made it into Veilguard. But they did a podcast, a audio drama that profiled all of the characters before the game came out, and you could find out the backstory. And of course, Dragon Age also has books and novels and comics as well that came out ahead of Veilguard to build up the storyline.
Nice. Awesome. All right. Last thing about what we would want from the next Mass Effect. Do you think if it's going to reference the games at all, should it try and incorporate player choice, maybe in some kind of like campy, tacky way, like Black Mirror did with Bandersnatch?
I think if they are going to do it, it has to be, and they're going to make these decisions for us, give the dilemma, make it feel like, and I almost want it to be like you can see this Shepard character like looking back and forth and trying to make this decision in their mind of what they're going to choose. No matter what, you're going to piss off half the audience, no matter what you do, half the people are going to be like, well, that's not the decision I made. So therefore this TV show's, it's all a bunch of lies. But if they go that route, make the decision feel important.
That would be interesting if they had their protagonist really stuck in a hard rock in a hard place kind of decision, and they're looking back and forth, or maybe they're in the middle of talking with someone. And what would you do if you heard the sound effect from the interrupt come up, and it doesn't come up on screen, but you just hear the sound effect, which is like such a subtle nod to everyone who played the games that you'd be like, oh man, some shit's about to happen.
Yeah, no, I think that's the type that would make me happy for it to happen. And if I'm going to see the decisions that are not my decisions, at least nod to the fact that that we know that this is not your choice. I love that idea.
Yeah.
And they had sound effects in Fallout, didn't they? That were taken directly from the game.
I don't know. I don't know Fallout that well to say one way or the other.
I feel like there's definitely ghoul sounds that were ripped audio files and other things. I know that Cyberpunk did that with their anime. Some of their some of the sound effects that they used on the Edge Runners anime were ripped directly from the game.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh, you know what? I forgot that if these casting calls are to be believed, then we can definitively say this is going to be live action. It's going to be a live action TV show. It's not going to be animated at all.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think that that's definitely true. I don't think that it would be an Amazon series if it was going to be anything but live action.
Well, who knows? But with the mention of prosthetics, definitely live action. Which also leads me to wonder how much of it will be CGI versus like animatronics, like Star Wars has kind of stuck to, you know, for that old campy feel. I think that's kind of like a Star Wars thing. I would not want them to go that route, I think.
Yeah. I mean, other than the Geth, we don't have a lot of animatronics that would be necessary. But I don't think that you can do anything but an android animatronic for somebody like Legion.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. If it were too small or too smooth with CGI, it'd look weird. But all right, that's all we got for this week. Thanks for joining us, Spectres. We are trying to get back to a normal recording schedule for next week, and I promise you, we are still planning on bringing you the Paul Grayson lore. For those of you who are big fans of the novels and have been waiting for us to talk about Paul Grayson, thank you for your patience. Genesis, what do you got going on until next week?
Yeah, I've got 2 other podcasts that I host. The Two Girls, One Ship podcast, where we analyze, rate, and review all that the world of video game romances has to offer. And the Cyberpunk Lorecast, where we explore the foundations of the past, the state of Night City today, and the news of the future for all things cyberpunk.
Right on. All right, and until next week, I don't really have anything going on. I definitely don't have any streams planned in the next near future because being a dad is rewarding, but it is kicking my butt, as well as applying for jobs. I've surpassed 400 applications at this point, I'm pretty sure. This market sucks, and if you are also unemployed and trying to find a job and you can't, don't feel bad about it, because I'm there with you. All right, until next week, Spectres, we should go.